what was it, 2 weeks ago? Shannon Sharpe
Almost
left.
3. Yep.
Almost 3 weeks ago, Shannon Sharpe left Undisputed, and they are still struggling to find a co-host to host the show with Skip. Sticks, what's going on there, man?
Man, it's gonna be hard, bro. It's gonna be hard to replace a personality and a somebody like Shannon Sharpe in general. Like Undisputed was one of my favorite morning sports shows that I watched. Well, I couldn't watch it because it came on way too early for me in the mornings. It came on, I think was recorded, or it came on like 5 in the morning in West Pacific time. So I was not up at the time to actually watch it on TV, but I listened to it every morning on the way to work, just to kind of get an idea what happened the day before in sports and what their ideals are. It was one of my favorite shows for the past 8 years. Show was on the air for 8 years. And there was some backlash with Skip and some backlash with Shannon and some things that Skip said, some things that Shannon said, and the beef that was forming between them over the past, I would say 2 years, D-Lo? Say 2 years? Definitely the past year, but at least the past 2.
Yeah.
That was forming
Yeah.
between them with
Year
some of
and
the
a
things
half.
that year and a half that was forming between them with some of the things that Skip would say and Shannon wouldn't agree with, and Shannon wouldn't show up to a couple of the shows the next day because something that Shannon said, especially revolving around his
Skip.
love of Tom Brady. Skip Bayless's love
Yeah.
of Tom Brady and what he said in the midst of the Damar Hamlin situation when he almost passed away on the field. And and behind the scenes there was always some talk about who was the leader of the show, and was it Unc, was it Skip, and Skip had a lot of say as to far as what topics they would talk about, and Shannon didn't really like that. So there's a lot of talk revolving around them. So Shannon Sharpe took a buyout and he left the show. His last show was June 16th, that Friday, June 16th. He said he was leaving after the finals was over. The finals was over on June 12th. So he left on June 16th, and that last show was very emotional for Unc.
Was it June 16th? I feel like as soon as the finals was over, the next day he was gone. He was announced. That was his last show.
It was the 16th. The last show was on June the 16th, and it was a very emotional show. I think it was more emotional it was very emotional for Unc, but for Skip, it seemed like he was emotional, but I think he was more nervous. Like, okay, how are we gonna replace this man? Right. And it's showing that over the past 2-3 weeks that it's very hard to replace Shannon Sharpe. Very, very hard to replace Shannon Sharpe, especially the dynamic that they had on that show for the past 8 years. And it has been reported that Skip is actually taking a hiatus from the show too, because they need to figure out how they're going to replace that man. And Shannon Sharpe is a personality that is irreplaceable to me. To me, he's very irreplaceable. And I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna let D-Lo get into it. The fact that Disney just made 7,000 cuts, they fired about 7,000 people. ESPN fired a lot of their sportscasters, and come to find out that Fox and Fox Sports is also owned by Disney as well. So they probably made some cuts within their organization too, within that program. So with them making cuts and having to figure out who they're going to give this money to and who's going to be the best personality, they're probably having a hard time with the money and the personnel to figure out who the hell they're going to put on this show. So what you feel about it, D-Lo?
I mean, I think it's two ways to look at this. First off, Fox Sports 1 was truly caught off guard when Shannon wanted to leave the show. And the second one would be nobody wants to work with Skip. So I feel like they were caught off guard because, as you mentioned, or as has been mentioned, Unc's departure was rather untimely. While he did say he had let everybody know 2 weeks prior or it was public knowledge 2 weeks prior his actual departure that he was leaving. We've talked about it last week. There has been a pretty up and down time in the economy right now. There, as you mentioned as well, just not even 2 minutes ago, just recently, there have been cuts in the media, especially with Disney letting go 7,000 people from their respective jobs within various roles of Disney. We've known quite a few on-air personalities to be let go. Jalen Rose, Steve Young, excuse me,
Susie
uh,
Colbert, Keyshawn
Susie
Johnson. Yeah, a
Colbert,
lot of them.
Keyshawn Johnson, those individuals, Max Kellerman, Jeff Van Gundy, those
Todd
type of
McShay, those
individuals,
guys. Yep.
Todd McShay, yeah, those type of individuals have been let go. David Pollock, a lot of people have been
Mm-hmm.
let go. So you would think with those caliber individuals being let go from ESPN and the various outlets that during this time of the co-hosting spot for Undisputed being vacant, they could easily fill in somebody. I just think that Skip wants it for whatever reason. Skip wants it to be a person of color, a black person in that role. Names that have been floated have been Stephen A. Smith. He's currently under contract with
Mm-hmm.
ESPN. Don't see that happening.
Don't see that happening again.
Charles
Yes.
Barkley. Charles Barkley has publicly said he does not like Skip Bayless many times, right?
I couldn't
Little
see Charles
Wayne,
Barkley on that show. Though.
yeah, you
I
know what I mean.
couldn't
Like
see it. I couldn't see it.
these are pie in the sky co-hosts. I think Skip wants to make a splash with this. He wants to make a major splash with this co-host. So it's like, yeah, I can replace Shannon Sharpe, and the show can still be number one. Because if you just put anybody there that doesn't bring the energy that Shannon Sharpe brought on a day in day out basis,
Man,
I mean, they've always been number two, but they won't be number two when it comes to those morning sports talk shows
hundred
anymore.
percent.
They'll fall because, I mean, while Skip is very controversial, he brings a lot of notoriety or a lot of attention to the show with some of his outlandish takes
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes are right, sometimes aren't right. You have to have somebody that can go at Skip and not be concerned with how he's going to be taken in. And that was Shannon Sharpe, that was Stephen A. Smith, and it's made Skip, I guess you can say, did make both of those. I wouldn't say made both of those individuals, but he did have a part in making them who they are now in the sports entertainment place, yeah, in the arena. But I just think it's telling of they were truly caught off guard. Fox Sports won, and I don't think anybody wants to work with Skip because of his outlandish takes and how he's made his name with as Skip Bayless is hating on some very notable black athletes. And now, if it has to be a black co-host, somebody's going to be reluctant to work with him.
100%, man. And I wanted to bear the question too, bro. Like, who do you think would be the best replacement? Because, like I said, Skip is very irreplaceable. Not Skip. Shannon is
Shannon.
Unc is very irreplaceable, bro. Especially like
Yeah.
you said, the energy that he brought, the personality that he had, the way him and Skip had that banter back and forth, and he always challenged Skip in his thoughts and his approach. Like, who would be the best? I think I was talking to a buddy of mine last night, and I think a good replacement would probably be somebody like Ryan Clark. I think would be a good replacement to Shannon Sharpe. I think he would. I think he would do well. He doesn't have the same fiery personality as Shannon had, but I think he would. I think he has some very respectable takes. I think he would be able to hold his own sitting across from Skip Bayless. But I just don't see nobody like Lil Wayne ain't gonna be able to do it. He don't. I don't think he knows. I think he's a sports fan. I don't think he knows enough to be an analyst to do that. As much as I respect Lil Wayne, don't take that the wrong way, brother. I know you love the Green Bay Packers and you know something about the sports, but I don't think you would have enough to be an analyst. Charles Barkley, I don't think he digs deep enough into football to be able to do it. I know he knows a lot about basketball, but maybe not. I don't think he will be able to dig deep enough into football to be able to do it. But somebody like Ryan Clark, or even somebody like as much as I hate to say it, somebody like Kendrick Perkins might even be able to take that spot. But
I mean, he's currently employed by ESPN too, though.
True, but I'm just throwing names out. I'm trying to figure out how they would do it. But I just feel like I don't want to say this, but with the departure of Unc, did Undisputed just die?
One would think that. I mean, and that's why they're on this 2-month hiatus. They're not supposed to come back until August 28th, I believe. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, yeah, you took losing Shannon Sharpe takes a large portion of that fan base, of that view, of those viewers away from the show. As far as who could replace him, obviously, like we said, there isn't a person with the same energy, with the same intellect, or the same antics to bring to that show. But if I had to guess, based off of who's currently employed at Fox Sports One, and maybe even some viable ones or available ones, I would say Chris Broussard could be an interesting choice for
That
them.
could be an interesting choice.
I can't think, for whatever reason, the other person I can't think of right now, but he's on the same show as him. The I think he's white. I don't know his name, but he loves LeBron, thinks LeBron's, what is his name? Nick Wright. Nick Wright could
Nick
be
Wright.
another.
That,
Nick Wright
I
could be
can
another
say that.
individual. And then Keyshawn Johnson would be a more mellow pick, but Keyshawn Johnson could also be a person that they bring in and pick up for Undisputed.
Got you. And I just Googled who could replace Shannon Sharpe alongside Skip Bayless, and they said LaShawn McCoy.
That's the first name that came out. Like when it actually was known that Shannon Sharpe was leaving, he was like one of the first names. I don't think two things. I don't think LaShawn wants to work with Skip, and I don't think Skip respects LaShawn enough to want him as a co-host.
And then the second name was Emmanuel Acho, which I think would be a pretty good one.
Yeah.
The Joy
He has
Taylor.
his own show, don't he?
He does.
Joy Taylor would be good.
Joy Taylor would be good. I think so as well. And then who you mentioned, Nick Wright. Those were the four names that came up that whenever I Googled it for those people who are in-house candidates to replace Shannon Sharpe. But I just feel like Undisputed just died, bro. Like Unc was such a personality on that show, and he low key, even though Skip, it was his show. He was considered the host of the show, but the way that dynamic was, and the way that Shannon Sharpe held his own, and his energy and his personality on that show, he's gonna be hard to replace, bro. And I think that, like you said, they number two now. They ain't gonna be number two for long, especially if they don't pick the right person to replace Unc. So we're gonna see how that rolls, bro. We're gonna see how that rolls. Thank you for watching this video. If you've made it this far, there's a video on the screen right here. Go ahead and click that and view that. Also, you can find us on all your streaming platforms, wherever you find your podcasts.